Welcome to the Quantanix YouTube channel. This is the NextLayer podcast, episode 7. Today we're diving deep into a question that's, well, it's become increasingly urgent in our interconnected world. The age of data. Is privacy already dead? You know, privacy in the age of data. It feels like everywhere we turn, our digital footprints are just expanding, blurring the lines between our physical and online lives. And this idea that privacy is dead, well, it's definitely out there. You hear it a lot. So our mission in this deep dive is to really dig into that claim. We'll be exploring the profound impact of this data age, examining what safeguards, if any, are currently in place, and considering what the future landscape of privacy might actually look like. And we're drawing from a detailed report titled Privacy in the Age of Data.
It's a huge question, and it definitely resonates. This report really kicks off by highlighting a fundamental shift. It says we've moved beyond just, having data to truly being immersed in it. It calls this the age of data.
Exactly. Immersed. It's not just files on a hard drive anymore, is it? It's this continuous flow of information from, well, everything. Our social media, the sensors in our phones, even our online shopping habits. The sheer scale is just... it's almost unimaginable, the amount of data being created. Yeah. So what's the core implication of this shift, according to the report? Is it just about more data, or is something fundamentally changing in how we relate to information?
Well, the report really emphasizes that this exponential growth allows organizations to routinely collect, store, and crucially analyze these massive data sets, ways that just weren't possible before. They're looking for those valuable insights that, drive decisions.
Like the recommendations you get on shopping sites, maybe.
Exactly like that. That's a perfect example of this kind of analysis in action.
And that brings us to these powerful big data technologies, right? The report mentions their ability to analyze millions, maybe billions of data points at once. What specifically do these technologies do that older methods couldn't handle?
Well, the key things are volume and speed, really. Handling enormous amounts of data incredibly fast, but also finding complex connections, patterns that would be completely invisible with older manual analysis. It often involves processing data across many computers simultaneously and working with really diverse information types.
Diverse types.
Yeah.
Right. The report mentioned that too. Not all data is the same.
Yeah, it breaks it down. You've got structured data, like in traditional databases, neat rows and columns, then semi-structured, maybe like info on web pages, and then unstructured data that could be anything. Audio, video, social media posts.
So like a customer spreadsheet is structured. Or maybe a voicemail recording is unstructured.
Precisely. And when organizations combine all these different types, structured, semi-structured, unstructured, and analyze them together, they can create these incredibly detailed digital dossiers on us, a really deep picture of our behaviors, preferences, even who we know.
Wow. Okay. So given this constant collection, it's maybe not surprising the report touches on how it affects our perceptions. It mentions that Pew Research study finding over 60% of Americans feel it's basically impossible to avoid data collection now.
Exactly. And that feeling feeds directly into this whole privacy is dead narrative. It highlights why so many people feel like maybe the battle's already lost.
But then the report pivots, which I found really interesting, to the history of privacy itself. Mm-hmm. It suggests our current idea of total privacy might actually be relatively new, maybe a 20th century thing tied to housing and affluence.
Yeah, it presents that perspective that maybe the expectation of absolute privacy isn't some timeless constant.
Okay, but even if the expectation is newer, doesn't the potential for harm from this massive data collection feel different? Like a fundamentally new kind of challenge compared to the past?
Oh, absolutely. The report acknowledges that. Despite that historical framing, the desire for privacy is still a really significant concern for people today in this information society. There's this definite tension, between valuing our personal space and wanting the convenience and personalization that data-driven services offer.
That balancing act, yeah. Especially for democracies that value individual rights but also want a successful digital economy.
Exactly. It's a tough balancing act.
So, okay, with all that context, what are the core arguments the report lays out for the privacy is dead side of the coin?
Well, one big one is just the sheer pervasiveness of social media. I mean, we share so much online, often very publicly. Combine that with sophisticated surveillance by companies hungry for data, and, anonymity online starts to feel pretty much impossible.
Every click leaves a trace, right? The report emphasizes that. Search queries, location data, browsing history. It's like digital breadcrumbs we're constantly leaving behind, and they can be collected, analyzed, monetized.
Precisely. digital exhaust, as some call it. And then there's the idea of voluntary surrender. We often give up personal info, maybe without thinking too much about it, for small perks, loyalty programs, discounts.
That trade-off again, convenience now versus potential privacy issues later.
Right. And the report suggests this implies we sort of know our data has value, even if we don't fully grasp how it's being used downstream.
The report also points out inconsistencies in how people feel about privacy, doesn't it? Like being uncomfortable with Street View showing your house, but maybe wanting more public surveillance for security.
Yeah, that ambivalence, it suggests our view of privacy is becoming more contextual, maybe negotiable, depending on the situation. It's not always an absolute.
And it includes that very blunt Scott McNealy quote.
Yes. You have zero privacy anyway. Get over it. That perspective basically frames privacy as, well, a lost cause in the face of technology. Just accept it.
But the report doesn't just leave it there. It pushes back. It presents the counter-argument, right? That many experts see privacy as evolving, not dead. And they point to regulations as proof.
Absolutely. The EU's GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation, is the prime example cited. The report really highlights how GDPR frames data privacy as a fundamental human right, not just a consumer thing. It gives people much more control.
That's why we see all those cookie pop-ups now, basically.
Yeah.
Giving you more
That's a direct consequence, yes. More control over your data. And we're seeing similar moves elsewhere, like California's CPRA.
Though the report does acknowledge that actually implementing and enforcing these rules is tricky. There are challenges.
Definitely challenges. Compliance is complex, enforcement can be limited, but the report sort of frames these as growing pains. The difficulties you'd expect when trying to regulate something so complex and fast-moving, rather than proof that the whole effort is futile.
And the fact that people are still actively developing privacy-enhancing technologies, that also suggests it's not a dead issue.
Right. Innovation is still happening in this space. The report even mentions Professor Mark Elliott's idea, this concept of a personal data avatar.
Yeah, tell me more about that. That sounded intriguing.
The idea is essentially giving individuals complete control over who accesses their data and why. A sort of digital representation you manage directly. It flips the power dynamic, giving you much more agency over your digital self.
Interesting. Okay, so the report then gets into what it calls the data economy dilemma. Which feels like the absolute core of this whole thing.
It really does. It's that fundamental tension, the huge commercial and social value of data versus the need to protect individual rights and autonomy. You've got this booming digital economy powered by cheaper data processing and storage.
And fueled by AI and machine learning advancements that let companies analyze data in real time, make predictions. Huge benefits for business efficiency.
Huge benefits, yes. But as the report points out, the very same capabilities driving that value are also what create the biggest privacy headaches. As more of life goes digital, our old ways of thinking about privacy just don't quite cut it anymore.
Leading to that privacy paradox it mentions, where we say we want strong privacy, but we also really like the convenient personalized services that often rely on data sharing.
Exactly. We want it both ways. And resolving that paradox, figuring out that balance, is one of the key challenges we face.
So if we're not just throwing our hands up and saying privacy is dead, what's the path forward, according to the report?
Well, it argues strongly against surrender. Instead, it suggests we need to actively rethink and reimagine what privacy actually means in this digital context.
It mentions that current safeguards often struggle with distinguishing privacy from confidentiality, and that real solutions need a broader society-wide approach.
Yes, it can't just be about individual actions. It needs systemic thinking. The report acknowledges tech advancements like cloud storage, better databases, but it stresses we need equally innovative approaches to privacy protection to match that pace.
Like that personal data avatar idea, potentially being one piece of the puzzle, giving control back to the individual.
Potentially, yes. It's about shifting agency while still allowing data to be used beneficially.
And what other strategies does the report mention?
It lists several promising avenues, things like privacy by design, building privacy into tech from the start, not bolting it on later. Also, differential privacy techniques, ways to anonymize data for analysis, the idea of data trusts, which would have a legal duty to protect data, and more transparency around the algorithms that make decisions based on our data.
What strikes me about those is they seem less about achieving total secrecy, which might be unrealistic now, and more about setting boundaries, ensuring accountability, giving people more control and understanding in a world where data is being shared. Is that fair?
I think that's a very fair assessment. It's about managing the flow and use of data responsibly, establishing new norms and safeguards for this new reality.
Okay, so wrapping up the report's main thrust, saying privacy is dead is just too simple.
Definitely an oversimplification. The reality is much more complex, much more dynamic. Privacy is under pressure, no doubt about it. Traditional ideas are being challenged by constant data collection. But there's also a clear ongoing commitment through regulations, through technology development, to finding ways to protect it, or perhaps redefine it.
So the future probably lies in finding that balance between data's usefulness and our rights, needing adaptable frameworks, not just black and white rules.
That seems to be the direction the report points towards, flexible approaches that can evolve as technology does.
Which leaves us with that final thought from the report.
Right. The real question isn't if privacy is dead. It's more like, what new forms might it take? How will it adapt as we navigate this incredibly data-saturated world we're building? It's something for all of us, really, to think critically about our relationship with tech, with information going forward.
Absolutely. Some really crucial things to mull over as we all live through this. Thank you for breaking that down with us today.
My pleasure. It was a great discussion.
Thank you for joining us. Like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more deep dives on the Next Layer podcast at the Quantanix YouTube channel.